All right, good day, family. How you doing? Welcome to another broadcast. So glad that you guys can join us this wonderful day. And out here in beautiful Arizona, it's been cold. It's been cold. I mean, it's getting there. We had a few days where it was the sun was shining. We was up to almost 80 and all of that, and then man, it just went right back to just gray skies and raining. I'm not complaining. I'm not really complaining because I know we need it. You know, somehow, somewhere we need it. So you just dress warm and just handle business, and that's what we've been doing. So, but it's so good to have you guys here. So glad that you guys can join us for this broadcast, for this conversation. And I hope all is well. I hope your families and all that are doing well, considering the days and times that we're in and all of that. We're not going to get into complaining about what is and what ain't and all of that. You know, of course, if you follow this platform, you know, we don't do that. We ain't going to be up here complaining. We ain't going to be up here talking about, whoa, you know, no. We're going to look at it. We're going to put on our discerning eye, and we're going to look at this and say, and really try to understand these things, you know, and then learn from it and keep it moving and hopefully grow from it, you know. And so that's what we do here on this platform. So again, really appreciate you guys coming here. So, but again, you know, like I said, if this is your first time or you're brand new, or maybe you haven't been here a while and you just need a reminder, let me remind you again, we don't just talk about problems here. Okay. So if this is your first time and you are listening to us this evening for this discussion, and you're thinking halfway through or maybe a quarter way through, oh, I'm just so tired of hearing about all the problems. When are we going to come up with some solutions? If you take the time and familiarize yourself with this platform, you know, we have been providing our share of solutions. We can't solve everything, but we're certainly not just talking here. That's for certain. So before you go there, and before you start off by, you know, wanting to say, hey, you're, you're just, I'm tired. You just give me the solutions. Just tell me the solutions. You know, just know, again, we've been doing that, and we're going to continue to do that. But we're going to have the conversations that we have, and especially starting this evening. It's going to be one, as I said in the video that I uploaded late yesterday. This is going to be an adult conversation. No, ain't going to be nothing nasty. Ain't talking about that kind of adult. Okay. No peep room adult. Okay. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is simply the conversation we're going to enter into is one that is going to require a certain level of maturity. Okay. It's going to require an individual who ain't going to just get up, walk away, and leave because you're uncomfortable. You're going to have to be an individual that's willing enough to take it. You understand what I'm saying? And just take it for what it is, you know, and accept where it is, but not just accept it, because the acceptance is part one. Part two is, okay, where do we go from here? See, we don't just stay there and just, all this other stuff. No. It's going to lead to something. Okay. And, but we got to go into the basement. You got to have to put on your galoshes. You know, you're going to have to you got to be willing to get a little messy. You got to be willing to take it. And if that's not you and you can't take it, you just want me to say, for thus saith the Lord unto you, that you are a great nation, you're a hidden jewel, and pretty soon one day you're going to rise up and all this other stuff. This ain't the platform for you. Okay. We're going to tell you like it is. All right. Do we have a lot of hope? Do we have a lot of love and compassion for our people? Absolutely. But that begins with being honest and truthful and just being straight up. And that's what we try to do on this platform. So anyway, just wanted to kind of lay that out. So, you know, if anybody got to leave and you just, well, I just ain't got the time. Just tell me what to believe and think and all that. This ain't the place for you. Okay. It's going to take some level of maturity for you to listen in and, you know, and take it for what it is. Okay. We're going to be respectful, but at the same time, I'm getting older now. So I'm seeing now already more and more signs of me just saying stuff. I'm like, whoa, did I just say? Oh, that just left my mouth. I'm too late now. but anyway, so let's go ahead and get into it. So before we do, just a reminder, I think we just had an email go out, Samba Tree email. And if you're not familiar with that particular thing we have, that is a store that we have. I'm not going to go through the whole site. We're just going to highlight it very quickly. The website again is sambatree.com. All right. And right now, that's part of my little slides there. Right now, we have some things going on right now, some things we just added. But yeah, so I'll tell you again, sambatree.com. Why did we create sambatree.com? The purpose of sambatree.com is for us to create a platform, a separate platform, where we are not only providing some tangible solutions as far as our health is concerned, but also a place of education too. And so, of course, a lot of this stuff that we have on sambatree.com, you can get in a lot of other places too. But we doing it because we just want to do our part. So the website again is sambatree.com. We just added this thing here is purse size fragrance. Let me go back here because you're telling me that it was a e-blast that was put out, which I'm aware of, but I need to pull that up on the screen and so that you guys can we can just follow along with that. Let me see. Where was that? Let's see. Samba Tree. Okay, hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay, I got it. All right, here we go. Let me pull it up on the screen for you. All right. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Okay. Let me pull it up on that. There we go. All right, here we go. All right, so we just had this go out. So we have fragrances. You didn't know we made fragrances. Yeah, we make our own fragrances. Yeah, we don't just go. No, this ain't from the China man. We make our own. Pretty purse size and perfect. Our new fragrance rollerballs allow you to carry your favorite scent with you all day. So for you ladies, not no brothers now. Okay, not no brothers now. We don't do that. Okay, but for you ladies, we some beautiful, beautiful scents here. And now we have it in purse size. You can get one for $12.99 or two for $19.99. I personally assure you, it doesn't smell like Walgreens. It ain't Walmart. No, this is something we put a lot of thought in and created, and we want to make it available to you. And in fact, I think we have some here. Here's what it looks like here. In fact, hold on, stay there. All right. So let me see your little pretty wrist here for a second. All right, let me.
Family.
All right, so hold on. All right, here you go.
Hey, family.
All right.
They're roller balls, y'all.
Yeah, tell them. You tell them, because
I literally just walked in.
I know.
Not even know he was going live. Trying to see where the camera is. Oh, okay. They are roller balls. So what we did is we took the fragrance. Used to be called a Coty, and now it's called Life. Mm-hmm. All right, that's the original fragrance, and the newer fragrance is the Fresh Bamboo, but still the crowd favorite is the Life fragrance. So what we did is we put it in a roller ball. It's got a bamboo cap there. Okay, so it's a roller ball fragrance. It's about, well, you can see how tall it is. It's about 3.5 inches tall and 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay, so it's perfect for your purse. And stainless steel roller ball, and you can just roll the fragrance right there. Take it with you. So $12.99, which is super cheap for this much fragrance. Okay, it's 10 milliliters or 0.33 ounces. So $12.99 for one, or you can get two for $19.99. So you can do two of the Life fragrance, you can do two of the Bamboo fragrance, or you can do one of each, right? For $19.99, okay? That's new. And then, Dwayne, you can roll on down on that e-blast. I just sent this out, y'all. And so the moringa and the black seed body care. So the scrub, it's our most popular scrub, the moringa and black seed. That's what people order all the time. And so I said, why don't I offer the rest of that collection? So the African black soap, moringa and black seed, the bath, body, and massage oil, and the whipped shea, the combo butter with moringa and black seed. Okay, so that whole collection is now on the website. And you can come back to the camera, Dwayne. And so this is the black soap, okay? 13 ounces. A lot of you use that. In different in the different scents, but this one is the moringa and black seed, and then the bath and body oil, also moringa and black seed. Okay, that's that. And probably the best way in terms of saving money, can you pop back to the e-blast for me and just scroll down on it? And then you see how it says you can buy them separately, right? So you can get the black soap or just the combo butter. You guys have already started ordering it since I sent out the e-blast. Or you can get the body oil. You can buy them separately, or you can save money and buy them in the bath and body trio. Can you click on that, Dwayne? So when you go to the trio, it will show you, some of you that have never purchased this, it'll show you the different varieties, the lemongrass, relaxation, which is lavender, turmeric and neem, which is a big favorite, oatmeal and vitamin E, mango, milk and honey, sea moss and elderberry, African black soap. Okay, we don't have the picture uploaded yet, but when you go over here to scent, I'll make that larger. When you go over here, so if you're buying these separately, you're going to be about $34.97. So buying them in the trio is $29.96, and those are all the scents there. All right, moringa and black seed will be there on the top. And I think one last point I wanted to bring out why I like this so much. I'm on our new arrivals page. One second, y'all. One second. So we do a lot of these African black soaps in the store. Okay. We have the regular black soap, African black soap, and then we have the scented. And we do, what I use, like on my face, I wash my face and my body with black soap every day. And then I moisturize with shea butter. Okay. I'll use just the raw shea butter, or some of our, whipped shea, so on and so forth. But what I love about African black soap is that it's a balancer. So a lot of people think that black soap it dries the skin out. What it does, you may experience, if you're just using the black soap by itself, like for example, I'll be quick. If you are using like black soap putty, okay, like here, black soap putty, or if you're just using the black soap, I'm gonna go over here to bulk buys. This is what I use right here, okay? The African black soap block. Okay, that's what I use. I cut it up and I use it on my face. So what I use it on my face every day, and then I come behind it with shea butter or some of our other oils, maracuja, so on and so forth. But I want to show you this. Sorry. With the liquid black soap, okay, that's what I shower with, and I alternate, right? I alternate back and forth. The black soap, okay, you guys know it. A lot of you have it in your bathroom. Soothes skin irritations. and skin diseases, from rashes to psoriasis, fading skin discolorations. It evens out your skin tone, scalp itchiness and irritations. I mean, black soap is awesome. Okay. Stretch marks, all of that. Black soap is fantastic for. When you put the moringa and the black seed into, you combine it with the black soap, what you're getting is you're getting the antioxidant power of moringa there on your skin, and you're getting the black seed, okay, which helps to facilitate the moisturization of the skin and balancing. I could just go on and on. So I love this one. I like the smell. This one's probably the most masculine smell that we have in the store. So it's woodsy, so I like this one a lot. So that one just dropped, and maybe we'll come back soon, Dwayne. Maybe we'll come back and do a live, because we need to do that. Mm-hmm. We get so busy, y'all. We just get so busy. But let me come back and come. Y'all can. I can't see what I'm looking at.
Oh, I'm sorry. What happened? Oh, okay. Hold on.
Oh, there y'all are. Y'all seeing the side of my face. But yeah, maybe we'll come back and do a live, real soon. It's been a minute, but I miss y'all. I miss y'all. It's been really busy, really, really busy. So love y'all much. And I'll be seeing you. Love y'all.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate that. Yeah. So take the time when you get the opportunity. If you haven't been for a minute, or you haven't been at all, make sure you stop by sambatree.com. As you can see, I'm just kind of going through it. We got all kinds of things, from seasonings to dry fruits. We got our soursop drink, of course. That's still a popular favorite. I'm loving that. We got sea moss. We got, I mentioned the seasonings and all of that, powders, teas, things for your body, all kinds of stuff. Again, the website is sambatree.com. So just wanted to let y'all know about that. Okay. All right. So we got that out of the way there. So again, appreciate y'all as you're still coming in. So I will say this too, as we're getting ready to transition and get into what we're going to be talking about. Another thing too is, don't feel any kind of pressure that you got to listen to this whole thing all in one sitting. Okay. The video, I don't see why YouTube would pull it off, but whatever. The video will still be available. You can watch it, so if you got to drop off, or, don't feel whatever, because I'm dealing with two different groups here. You got some people, this is your bedtime time, it's about time you get ready to go to bed. And I understand that, so you got that group. Then you got other people who are just, tell me in 2 minutes. And if you can't tell me in 1 minute, then I'm out of here. Okay, so be it. I can't help you, but understand that what we are talking about here is something that, you're talking about over 400 years of deception. And it's going to take some time to unravel a lot of this stuff so that we can get our way out of this and make it out of the matrix, so to speak. So I'm just letting you know, we're going to take our time. There is going to be quite a bit of reading as well. And I know, again, for some people, reading, no. Not you, but some other people may be like that. But we're gonna read tonight, okay? And then, so it should be quite interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Now, let me kind of start off with this. I was trying to figure out what would be the best place to start. I guess the best place to start would be this. As you know, my wife and I, our family, we came out of the whole Hebrew construct. And, one of the things that we kind of, with our mantra or whatever you want to call it, is that we say, we're the chosen. We're the chosen ones. We are the chosen people. We're the chosen ones. We are chosen. That's why, because we're chosen. We are chosen above everybody else. We are chosen. And this is something that we would repeat over and over again. Now, let me ask you, you don't have to put it in the comments. It's something I want you to really think about. Okay. What does chosen mean? What does that actually mean as it pertains to you as an individual? But also, what does it mean when it comes to us as a people when you look at our history? So this whole thing about we are chosen, it basically is rooted in, again, it's rooted in a book that was given to us by our oppressors. And what we did is we took that book, the storyline, the narratives, and we made it our own. And if you look at our history, we have done that with a great number of things. Anything that was handed to us, we found some way to make it our own. We customized it and we made it our own. I mean, that's just the story of humanity a lot of times. I mean, depending on what group you're talking about. I mean, you got the Chicanos, they do that. You know, you got you go into Thailand, the Philippines, you know, when the American GIs went through there, you know, there's certain elements of American culture they took and made it their own and all of that. So this is just a thing that all people do to some measure, you know. So when someone says to you, or when you say that you are chosen, my question to you is, I want you to really think about this, is chosen to do what exactly? And the reason why, and I'm going to let that drift a little bit, because when you look at the topic, the overall topic that we're going to be talking about tonight, a history of hating ourselves, what can a group of people that have a history of literally hating ourselves and others that look like us, chosen to do what exactly? Do you know, many times we've told ourselves that one day, a day is going to come where things are just going to automatically flip just like that. And we're going to go from right mid stroke, like you getting ready to stab another brother. You getting ready to stab somebody. You getting ready to slice somebody's neck off, like clean off. Or you getting ready to cuss that person all the way out. That, you know, I'm done. So you don't get, and then right in mid cuss, there's going to be a glory cloud that's going to come down. They're going to say, "Oh, it's time. It's time for the great flip." And then you're going to be, oh, we're kings now. We're all kings now. We're kings and priests now. Now it's time. It's our time now. And right on at a flip, something's going to happen where you just automatically going to become part of this chosen group. Well, one of the things we try to do here is that you learn from history. In other words, what is the historical precedent that has been established from day one to where we are right now? And chances are, if, you know, for example, if I buy a car from a auto manufacturer that has a long history of putting out bad product, it would be kind of dumb for me to ignore that history and to expect something good. Do you understand what I'm saying? But people do that all the time. You will have the entire histories out there of how these people operated or how this company operated and the bad product that they put out. And and the information is out there, but people will still go ahead and be like, you know, I'm still going to give them a chance. But 9.99 times out of 10, history will tell you that, yeah, it's, you know, you wasting your time. Why are you doing this? Now, likewise for us. So when we look at us as a people, what we're looking at, I actually say it's two parts. We got to look at our history between now and 2024 and going back to when we were first brought into this whole demonic, you know, Eurocentric, you know, matrix system. But then you have another part, which we're not going to touch, but we've touched in the past, history beyond that. They called it, what they refer to as prehistoric. Remember, we talked about that. Anytime when they say prehistoric, what that means is before our history. Not black folks. I'm talking about white people. When white people say prehistoric, what they're saying is that's outside of the story that we want to tell. It doesn't mean that you didn't exist. It just simply means that your existence and the record of that existence, all the things that you achieved and accomplished and built and constructed and did all that, that's all put in the bucket called prehistory. It's prehistoric. And so what do they do? What do they associate with prehistoric people? They say that prehistoric people were dumb. They were cave dwellers. They were running around being chased by Dino and and T-Rexes and all this stuff. And we had big skulls and our faces were all wide and big. And, we had the big underbrow and all that other stuff. That's what they want. So you see that I'm trying to show you the games that they play to make it seem as if we just showed up out of nowhere, that we were discovered by them. And once we were discovered by them, then we were part of history, as in them, their history. Do you understand what I'm saying? But anything prior to that, it's prehistory. It's prehistoric. You understand what I'm saying? That's how so that's what they put in our minds, is that we're prehistoric, that anything prehistoric, it's just irrelevant. But we've spent a great deal of time talking about things that existed tens of thousands of years. There are kingdoms that have been around way before Egypt. The reason why Egypt is it's the talk of the town. It's been for forever. And it makes me mad sometimes when a lot of our people just stay hung up on Egypt. The reason why Egypt it's something that is of great importance, if you will, black folks and white folks, is because of the fact that it's important to white people. It's important to them because according to them, they discovered Egypt, even though Egypt was around for a long time. So they were just walking through Africa and they was like, oh, look at this great kingdom. Oh, look at what we found. Now we're going to take over it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, this is the first thing. This must be the first thing. Okay, so you're part of the history crowd. Then someone would say, well, wait a minute. Now you have kingdoms in South Africa that was around 70,000 years they're dating back. Oh, that's prehistory. That's before our history. That's prehistory. So that don't even matter. We're going to keep that as a mystery. We're going to leave that for ancient aliens to talk about. We're going to leave the show Ancient Aliens and they're going to let them handle that. So anytime when you talk about things that happened 10, 20, 40,000 plus years ago, it's always this big mystery. It's something that's, we don't know. It could have been aliens that built it. I don't know who did what. What were they doing? No. When you start digging in and start reading about the things that we can get our hands on, man, I tell you, our people on the continent, they were doing that's just on the continent, on Africa. You start getting into India, you start getting into some of these other countries, man. There was some major stuff that was going on. It didn't start with white folks. You understand? It didn't start with them. So anyway, so what happened is this. So let's keep it moving here, because the subtitle of what we're talking about is basically what happens when you're disconnected, the great disconnecting. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So let's start off with this. I'm going to give you a very basic scenario I think that we can all recognize and understand here. So, for example, when you take a lion, let's start off with a lion. Once you remove a lion from his original space, he's still a lion, but he will never be his full potential. So, for example, when you go to the zoo, which I despise, I hate it, as you get older and you begin to see, man, this is really nuts, man. These animals, why do they always look so sad? I used to look at that all the time. Why these animals look sad? Because you took them from their land. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes, if you see an animal in captivity, I'd be like, raising a fist like, I'm with you, bro, because we kind of identify here. All right. It's going to get really interesting here in a moment. What I personally believe is that all of these different, so when you take a lion, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So when you take a lion and you put him in a zoo in Missouri, or in Maine or in California, it doesn't matter. That lion will still be a lion, but he will never be at his full potential. He will never be able to reach it. Same thing with a plant. If you take a plant, I can get a cactus, right? I can get one of these cacti out here. And then I'm gonna put it in a nice little planter pot, a little pot, copper, what you call it, a clay pot. I'll see if I can dig one up, go in the desert out here, get a small one, right? Put it in a little pot. Next time I go see my mama, I'm gonna go and give it to her. She's in New Jersey. Now, she will have the know-how how to preserve it and how to keep it alive. But that cacti will never live to be its full potential. Never. Because you removed it out of its original place. It'll never be. It'll still be functional. It'll still be alive. And you know what? It may even bloom. But it will never live to be at its optimal. Never. It won't be. You know that like cacti, there's certain cactus, for example. They actually are connected. They actually have their own network. It's like trees. Many of y'all are already aware of this. Trees or certain plants, they operate in a net. If you ever walked in the forest and you notice, why is it that certain plants like kind of grow together? Like it ain't like someone planted them there like that. They just grow together like that. Well, they do that because they know each other. It's kind of like the same. It's the same reason why when black folks or white folks go into a lunchroom, they all sit with each other. The black folks sit at the black table. The white people sit at the white table. The Asians, they sit it's the same thing. Nature is no different. It's no different. But they all figure out a way where they play off of each other. They don't just, most of their sources, the source that they need to live off of, they know who to connect to. The daffodils are going to connect to the daffodils, but they also going to be connected to some of the other things that are around them too. But the main source is going to come from the other daffodils that are around them. Same thing with any other herbs or trees and stuff like that. There are certain cacti that are out here that actually operate where I was reading something where they said that, where the military was actually doing some studies on can certain cacti, can they actually broadcast radio signals? There's enough evidence that shows that they actually communicate via aerial. They actually, there's a way they can do that. But if you take these things out of its environment and put them in a little clay pot and send it on its way to New Jersey somewhere, who's it going to connect to? See, there's a natural connection that we have on our original land, and there's also a spiritual connection. Okay, now you got to walk with me now. So when you look at the world, let's say we just stretch the world out. We got a world map right here, right? And you got all these different lands. We are all these people groups and stuff. You got the island folks. You got the people who are living in the far reaches of the earth, all over the place, right? Each one of these people have their own belief. They have their own cultures, right? They grow their own food, right? They also have their own spirituality. Okay. Each one of these people that go back tens of thousands of years ago, each one. So when you go in, we're going to use today's term, Central or South America, and when you look at some of those groups that have been there for thousands and thousands of years, they had their own spirituality. They didn't have a Bible. They didn't need a Bible to last that long. And their kingdoms were big. I mean, they were massive, and they were doing all kinds of stuff for thousands and thousands of years. Thousands of years. So that's Central, let's say South America. And just in the Americas period, you had native people here. They had their own belief system. They had their own spirituality. And their spirituality was in all of these groups, it's rooted in nature. All of them are. Same thing in Africa. All throughout Africa. Their spirituality it's intertwined with nature itself. Intertwined. So when you when you're talking about African spirituality, for example, if you're talking about some of these other, cultures that have their own spirituality, it is intertwined oftentimes, well, I would say just about all the time, with their indigenous spot. So you're not going to find African spirituality, let's say, in Hawaii, or you're not going to find Hawaiian spirituality, let's say, in the Philippines. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to find that there. All of these people have their own spiritualities that they've used, and that's helped them to live and thrive and to exist for tens of thousands of years. But when Christianity came, Christianity represented the spirituality of their people. I'm talking about these Europeans. Now, we've already cleared the deck on that when people talk about, well, Christianity is actually an African thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. We've already cleared that deck. All right. You got to go back to our videos. It's a very simple thing to expose that. No, it may have, like I said, a lot of, when we talk about the Bible, much of the Bible was written in Egypt and in Northern Africa. I'll give you that, or what we would call, the Middle East today. Most of it was written in Egypt. But who were the writers? Who were the ones that were writing it? They were not people that were thinking about you or me. They were thinking about their own people. Okay. They were thinking about the people in the Mediterranean. When Jesus said, "Go ye in all the world and preach the gospel," where did his disciples go? In the Mediterranean. They didn't go into Central and South Africa. We've already talked about all of this. They didn't get on ships and go, in Central South America. They didn't do that. When their message crossed the board, went away from the Mediterranean, where all these white people were living, they came with guns. They said, we're going to give you nice little artwork. We're going to give you nice statues that's going to explain our spirituality and la, 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 all in their land. But they said, listen, when we're going to go to them, we're going to come with the whip and the sword and the gun. That's how it came to us. Now, I've touched on this before, but I think it bears repeating. When you look at Christianity and you compare it to, let's say, some of these other spiritualities that are out here, I'm talking about like these different indigenous groups that are all out here. What really sticks out to me when I look at Christianity and compare it to some of these other ones is that in many ways, Christianity isn't interwoven with nature. It really isn't. Christianity is really based on individuals. Have you ever stopped to think about that? Let's take our time with this. Like I said, I'll take as much time as I need to, because I need y'all to really listen. When you look at Christianity, it's mostly, if not all of it, is centered around people. Nature is secondary. It'll mention that the God that we worship created nature, boom, and that's pretty much it. But for the most part, it's centered around personalities and people. Now, when you get into some of these other groups, I'm just saying, we're just going to say all of Africa, okay? African spirituality, which is a huge umbrella, right? When you take the time and just study just a little bit of it, what's intertwined in their belief system is nature. Like, you can't separate African spirituality and nature. You can't do it. Same thing with when you go into the Aztec, world and study, look at their spirituality. You can't separate it. It's like, it's all intertwined. You take away their spirituality. If their spirituality is gone, that means nature. You remember a while back, I talked about how when this was during when this is past the time when they were the Trail of Tears, but it was around that time where these army, the Americans, right, as they were pushing their way westward, there was certain groups of natives that were here that they just could not defeat. And they were trying to figure out, they was like, how the heck can we defeat them? And someone had the idea, they said, This is how you defeat them. You go after those water buffalo, kill their water buffalo, and then it's a wrap. So what America did was they launched into this whole thing where they were putting flyers all over the place on the East Coast, and they were telling people, hey, listen, we're going to sponsor trips for you to go west, and you can shoot as many buffalo as possible. Kill them all. We don't care. It's going to be a shootout derby. Woo! We're going to do it. And that's exactly what they did. And there's pictures, and I've shown you that, and you can look on our community page. I've put on there many times. Mountains of skulls of buffalo. They just killed them just to kill them. Not because America needed meat. It was a strategy to destroy the people that were already here, their spirituality. And they could see once that happened, the people said, well, what's the point of even fighting? What's the point? Because you literally have torn something from our spirituality, our belief system. And it just destroyed them. So getting back to Christianity. So what Christianity has done is taken upon itself and says, we are to go all over the world and to tell these people what you believe. Nature is secondary. You need to worship our God. And everything falls under our God. But these people are like, well, wait a minute now. We've been doing this thing for tens of thousands of years now. And what we worship is worship. Now you coming and telling us we got to destroy all of this stuff? We got to destroy. We've been doing all right before y'all came. Now you telling us we doing it wrong. We doing it wrong. So we got to destroy all this up. You click, you daggone right. And we're going to count to 3. And you better tear all this stuff down because it's wicked. It's demonic. It's of the devil. Now, as I'm talking here, for some of y'all that's a little spooky, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you got to start exploring other religions. I'm not telling you that. You do whatever the heck you want. I'm not endorsing anything. We're just talking, okay? We're just taking the time and we're just going through this. So don't jump ahead of me. So what Christianity did is Christianity went to all these different places, the islands, the furthest points, the nearest points or whatever, and told these people who were doing their thing and apparently had it down to their own science for millennium. I mean, they've been doing it for thousands of years. And Christianity, which is not based, again, there's nothing intertwined. It's not based on nature. It's based around personalities and domination. Let me say that again. It's based on personalities and domination. And so we talked about, remember we talked about how, what was it? The king of, was it Spain or Portugal? Not the king, the Pope Nicholas, I think it was, basically said, when you go out and you go to these other places, and he was specifically talking about Central and South Africa, he said, you are to subjugate them. That is how we bring the gospel to them. You are through subjugation. You're supposed to enslave them and teach them by being enslaved. You're actually pleasing our God. That's how Christianity came to us. So anyway, so now I hope by now you kind of got the idea. You have all of these different groups that have had their own spiritualities. They had their own belief systems, and they were doing well for the most, whatever well was for them. They were fine. Been operating for tens of thousands of years. They've been doing fine. They still finding like 30, 40, 50 miles in the ocean. I'm talking about out beyond the coastline. They still finding stone roads and buildings and stuff. They're like, how the heck how this stuff end up out here? Because they've been down there for many, many years. They've been down there for tens of thousands of years. They're finding stones that got inscriptions on it. They're still trying to figure out how to even read it. So don't let these people lie to you and try to make it seem as if Europeans brought They were the shining light, and they brought us all this stuff. Nah, they were just tagging off of what was already here. You understand what I'm saying? And their task and their drive is to get you to forget where you come from and to forget what you were connected to. So now let's bring it home to us as a people. I'm talking about black folks now. So black folks, so what they did was they came in. I'm talking about, I'll just say Africa. We're just talking about Africa, particularly the part that was enslaved both by the Muslims and also by the Christians, right? So what happens is they came in and they ripped us away from nature. This is part of what slavery did. Okay. What it did was it separated us from our own belief systems that was rooted and based in nature. It was the way we understood nature and communicate with nature and all that stuff and live peacefully alongside nature and all of that, right? So when we were taken away from our original place, even though we can operate and we can function, but we will never be at our optimum as long as we are not where we're supposed to be. Now, I want you to, there's layers to that now, because see, for some of you who are hearing me right now, you may think that means, well, I guess that means we're supposed to move back to Africa. No, that kind of is messed up, because if you go to Africa, what have they done there? They've jumbled it all up there too. So now when you go back to Africa, this is why for many of our people who are in the diaspora, and we try to go back, in many cases, it's like, well, I thought it would work, but it ain't. You think it's just you think everything's just going to fall in place, but it doesn't. And there's exceptions out there where people go and they live a good, healthy and fun life or whatever. I'm not telling people not to go. But if you think that you're going to go over there and everything's just going to fall in place, it's just not, because the land has been disrupted. I was thinking this earlier too. When we think about all of those resources, all those natural resources, we're just talking about Africa for just a moment. All of those natural resources that are in the ground, the gold and the diamonds and stuff like that, that's in the ground. Let me ask you something. What, or I should say, who told you that that stuff was supposed to be dug up? I want you to think for a second. Think, use your brain, allow your brain, just let it go there for a moment. Who told you? Who is it that put in your mind that it was almost your duty? It's there. All of it's got to be dug up as much as possible. Who told you that? Yeah, you've had kingdoms that were on the land that were digging up gold and they were using it for whatever. But not at this level. I mean, what we've been seeing in this system. I mean, where people are actually being enslaved and all that, they get blood diamonds and all this other stuff. No. Now, we've touched on this, I think, a while back in our series about light frequency and all that. When you remove metals and stuff from the ground, the earth itself has its own frequency. In fact, we talked about, this is going in South Africa, way South Africa. And we're talking about the, what they call Adam's calendar. You can look this up. And it's these thousands upon thousands of stone circles, if you will, that's scattered all throughout this one part of South Africa. And what was I saying about? Okay. And so they took aerial shots of these different formations, all in this area where all these stone circles are. And they noticed that these circles were in a pattern, certain pattern. So what they did was they had a little they would do sound testing meters. They had a sound meter they would put in there. And they said, just wonder why they put it in these certain patterns. Come to find out, the frequencies that is coming out of the earth at those different points almost match perfectly where these stones were positioned. I mean, you talking about, again, upwards of 70,000 years ago. This is where they're estimating that these things have been sitting up there. So these people who were living in that land at that time were so connected to the earth, they could even tell what the sound, the frequency pattern looked like at that point, at those different points. Isn't that something? So when you take precious metals out of the ground, like what we're doing today, what do you think is happening to the earth? What do you think is happening to the frequency of the earth? You're throwing things off. It makes you kind of wonder why we probably have all these doggone earthquakes. I'm just speculating. I'll tell you right now, I'm just speculating, because something that is created, this earth that we're on, I really don't think the earth was created to have earthquakes where tens and thousands of people are dying. That doesn't sound like a creator that cares about his people, does it? That don't sound like that. It sounds to me that perhaps something was thrown off. And when you're taking all of this stuff out of the ground and all of that, you're throwing things off. Metals, different metals have their own frequency. They have their own unique frequencies. Well, let's get away from the metals for a second. That may be too far out from you. Maybe that's too far for you to think about. All you got to do is think about fracking. Where they're taking oil out of the ground. They're doing all this drilling. And then you got people in the surrounding communities are complaining because they're talking about, man, things are just falling down. They get having these mini earthquakes and stuff, because what's happening is you're disturbing what was already there. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be there for you to drill it. Maybe you're supposed to leave it alone. So this is what that's greeting us and waiting for us in Africa. If you want to go back in Africa, again, hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying Africa is a bad place. Don't go there. Please don't say that. Please don't walk away with that. What I'm saying is what colonialism did is that they came in and not only disrupted the people, but they also disrupted the land. Things still grow there, but are they really growing at their optimum? Because we don't think about ecologically the ecosystem of what has been disturbed and destroyed because of colonialism. Things that have been set in place now, certain insects that don't even exist anymore, or birds that don't even exist anymore because of colonialism. And that has a direct correlation to the spirituality that was in those areas. So what Christianity did is Christianity came in and basically said, and so this is why now we can sit back and say, and when we wonder, okay, well, why is it then that it seems like white people are the most successful? If that's the case, why are they saying like they're more successful than us? Well, when you come into a place and you enslave the people and kill the rest that you don't like, and then what you're doing is you're setting up your own rules. The system is set up for them to always win. They come in. You remember the movie Avatar? How, these people came in from Earth and they just landed in this beautiful paradise. These people were living their life and doing it. They had their own food, their own culture. They had their own spirituality. They were doing their own thing and they were fine. Then these people came in and said, we're going to wipe all these fish. We're going to wipe them out because they're disturbing our history. They're disturbing our agenda. And we're going to slave these people and you're going to follow us. And what it did was it threw everything off. You start seeing plants die. Certain species, they just start dying off because you tore the fabric of the people's connection, their spiritual connection to that place, to the land. So even though you can take those people and transplant them, put them in another place, they will still exist. They can still live a long life, but they will never live to their full potential. And this is why what I say is, even for us here in America or wherever, We can still, it doesn't mean that you're doomed to failure, that you why even try. No, nobody's saying that. You do the best that you can, and yes, you can have a wonderful life. But just know but you also need to be aware of how much was really taken from you. So what it does, it forces a lot of our people who the Bible was thrown into our hands and said, you got to follow this. Now, the Bible, as I've said before, and I will say it over and over and over again, the Bible does contain truth. Is it all truth? No, but there is truth in it. You cannot tell an effective lie without some truth. So again, for the umpteenth time, I will never tell you to throw out the Bible. They have to include truth in it because truth is a universal thing. All of nature responds positively to truth. When you're telling the truth, things start coming in order, don't they? So what they do, what these wicked people have done, is said, we're going to put just enough in there because we want the order, but we want the control at the same time. So we're not going to tell you everything. That's why when I listen to some of these people out here that are talking about, saying how, that guess what? We found the hidden books. There's some hidden books out here that are just discovered. And I'm sitting up here like, you got to be joking me. Do you really think you're going to find a hidden book that contains info that you think if you read it, it's the secret sauce that you need to destroy the people that brought you over here in the first place? Come on, man. Come on. Trust me, if there's such a book that contains the specific instructions on how you can overcome, how you can defeat your enemy, you wouldn't have it. That's the big deception. So when we were separated from our land and all of that, I spent all that time for you to really understand this separation that took place. It took a lot out of us. So we can never really, in this present state, be at our optimum. Even the most successful ones around us, amongst us, are still not operating at their optimum. We push each other to do great things and to become better. But as long as you've been disconnected, like I just described here, you'll never reach that. But like I said, Christianity, what it did was it removed us from that. Christianity is based on personality and domination. And so what they did was they came in, and that's the fuel. That's why the people who honor that, hold on to that, that's what it's about. They go in and they just designed to take away from other people and put them under subjection. That's how they operate. So it's really against nature. This is not telling you to go worship trees and fish and birds and stuff. Nobody's telling you to do that. What I'm pointing out is that there is when you talk about spirituality, looking at these other cultures, it's in sync with nature. It is. And it's interesting how Christianity is not. So anyway, so let's move on here. So when that happened, so now when we were brought over here enslaved, we were disconnected, and now we were being reprogrammed. Okay, we were being reprogrammed with their stuff, their belief system, and all of that stuff. So now we're already kind of off kilter. Okay, and so by being off kilter now, what that happened, that now sets the course a little bit off. Okay. So anyway, let me see here, because I want to make sure I'm staying on my point, and I'm not gonna so power of spirituality. Let me see. The deprogramming of slavery. Welcome to the okay. So yeah, so you got the point. I don't need to belabor that as far as like the, going back to the initial example I gave about the lion, being in a zoo, he will still be a lion, but he'll never be at his full potential. So right now, for whatever reason, reasons we won't know until we cross over or whatever, we've been disconnected. However, we can still survive and we can still thrive because what's been put inside of us, we have been built to do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That you should, how can I say this? Your greatest encouragement should be the fact that you're alive. The fact that you are alive, your body, when your body is sick, this is for any person. What is your body doing? It's trying to repair itself. I saw a video the other day when they were on and it's something I still want to try, but it's those things where it's inside where you're climbing, rock climbing, indoor rock climbing. Anyway, this guy, he's very experienced, but for some reason, this one time he didn't hitch himself. He didn't connect himself to the cable. So he's climbed all the way up to the top. And like he normally does, he just jumps off. Well, he jumped off, but he realized in mid falling down, he wasn't connected to anything. And man, when he fell down, it was like boom. And immediately he was not moving. It was like he completely knocked out. Now from what I understand, he survived, but he broke quite a few bones. But your body, what it does, our Creator loves us so much, is that in situations like that, when you get knocked out, what your body is doing is saying, you can't handle this right now. So let me flip a switch and put you to sleep. That's what your body is doing. Anytime you get knocked out, because the amount of trauma your body took, it's so much, is that your body literally has to flip a switch to get you to go to sleep while it's trying to figure out how to repair itself. That's love. When you listen to, and one day we're going to talk about what happens when you die. We're going to talk about that because that's something I'm looking at all of this stuff and it's just really something, The short answer is ultimately, I don't know. But when you start listening to some of these people who have these experiences and stuff like that, now some of these people are lying, some of them are telling the truth, but there are some things in there that's like, this is really something. When you listen to these people and they talk about once they die, a lot of these stories, they'll say, I was just surrounded by love. I can't even explain it. I can't even express it. It was just, I was in a river of just this love. I was like, it was just too much. I didn't feel like I was deserving of any of this. It was just so much love. I mean, people all over the spectrum are saying this. People who claim that they died and came back and all of that. Then I started thinking about that and I was saying, nature is like that too. And I just explained about our bodies. Our bodies are always, no matter how terrible we treat our bodies, it's love that always is there, where your body's like, oh, well, I guess I'm gonna have to fix, he ain't eating right. Well, I'm gonna try to figure out something. That's love. I mean, we see love every day. We dump stuff in the environment and polluting the environment. What does the environment do? Well, I guess we're going to have to figure something out. We're going to have to figure some way to clean this thing up. And so the environment is basically doing everything it can to clean up the mess that we make every day by throwing stuff in the ocean and putting stuff in the air. The environment is constantly working to clean up our mess. That's love. That's dedication. Anyway, we'll talk about that one day. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Anyway, so now we talk about that. So you're disconnected. We were here on this land. Now we're being reprogrammed by these wicked people, okay, with slavery and everything that went on as far as slavery is concerned. Now we're going to get into the part we're going to start going into this experiment. It's an experiment called Liberia. That's where we're going to start. Okay. This is where we're going to start with this. Now, this is the part where for some people, when they hear this stuff, because I'm going to put my little warnings out right now. Okay. We're going to stop for a second and we're going to dive right back in, where I've had people who will try to say, well, these were the Edomites. Well, this was Ham. These were the children of Ham. Well, these weren't really our people. This was someone else. We're not going to have any delineation here. Not on this platform. We're going to take ownership. Okay, there ain't going to be any scriptures that you're going to be able to use to hide behind any of this stuff. I had someone the other day when I posted what I posted, and he wrote this whole paragraph talking about the children of Shem or Ham or something like that. And he went into this long thing. And I just responded by one thing. And I just said, before you bring Shem and the boys into this conversation, what non-biblical evidence do you have that Shem even existed? Notice I said non-biblical. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This whole storyline that we've been told, what evidence, tangible evidence? We got evidence. We can find evidence, all kind of stuff. But you're telling me that we have to trust the very people that you call the synagogue of Satan to tell you that this is how everything went down? No, you got folks all around here that have built whole ministries on where the Shemites, but they're the, and I'm like, okay, where'd you get that from? Well, it's from this book that they gave us. Okay. What evidence do you have to prove that these people existed? Well, I don't. It comes from that one book. No, we're not going to do that. Okay. We're not going to do that. We're not going to allow you to mislabel people and try to, no, we're going to look at it for what history tells us. All right. So if you can't handle it, I'm sorry. And you're just going to have to keep it all the way moving. Okay. But we're going to dive into this. Okay. So anyway, so let's get into Liberia. Now, in short, I'm not going to cover every aspect of this whole part that we're talking about when we're talking about Liberia and what happened there, because it's a lot, so I'm trying to keep it short and to the point. So in short, I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. And then there's like 2 videos I want to show you that are very short that do a much better job explaining. And then I have a couple of sources that I'm going to read from that's going to fill in more blanks, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. That's pretty much how this is going to go. But in short, the reason why I chose Liberia is because of the fact that what happened there, a lot of what happened there came at the hands of those who were formerly enslaved here in the United States. They went back over there, and what happened over there is a hot, stinking mess. I'll just say that. And to this very day, it's still a hot, stinking mess. So what I'll do without further ado is let me bring up these 2 videos. They're very short. We're going to watch these 2 videos just to get some more background, and then we're going to keep this thing running. Okay. All right. So let's go. Let me pull that video up. Probably going to be an ad come up first. Let's see, which one do I do? Okay. I'll do this one here. This is the one that was really good. Okay. So we're going to get rid of the ad. Okay. All right. And so this video comes to us by way of the channel called Backstory Africa. All right. And so you can check them out. I'm sure they have some other good things on their platform. So just wanted to let you know that, and you should see their thing right there. So if you want to check them out, you can. I just came across this video. I thought they did a pretty good job with it. And there you go. So, all right, come on, mouse. There you go. Uh-oh, sorry. I think that's good enough. Okay, here we go.
African nation is often overlooked in the annals of history. Yet, it holds a singularly remarkable legacy in the world. It was founded by freed slaves from the United States. Keep watching as we embark on a fascinating journey through time, tracing the footsteps of the freed slaves who founded Liberia. Along the way, we shall uncover the challenges they faced, the achievements they accomplished, and the lasting legacy they left behind. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps our channel grow and allows us to make more videos like this one. The seeds of Liberia's founding were sown in the early 19th century when the American Colonization Society was established in the United States. This organization aimed to create a colony in Africa for freed slaves who faced discrimination and marginalization in their homeland. The ACS, as it was also known, believed that by resettling these individuals in Africa, they would be able to enjoy greater freedom and opportunities while also promoting the gradual abolition of slavery in the United States. In 1820, the first group of freed slaves set sail from the United States, bound for the shores of West Africa. The voyage was fraught with peril and hardship, as these pioneers faced not only the dangers of the open sea, but also the uncertainties of their new lives in a foreign land. By 1847, some 300 black settler families from the United States had set up an independent republic. For more than 100 years, from 1877 to 1980, Liberia was governed under a one-party system in which the same party, the True Whig Party, controlled by the same elite group, held office continuously, dispensing patronage, deciding on public appointments and retaining a monopoly on power, a record equaled by no other political party anywhere in the world. Elections were nevertheless taken seriously, if only to determine which family emerged on top. Namely, the Barclays, the Kings, or the Tubmans. As members of a ruling aristocracy, the Americo-Liberians, as they called themselves, were immensely proud of their American heritage. They developed a lifestyle reminiscent of the antebellum South, complete with top hats and mourning coats and Masonic lodges. They built houses with pillared porches, gabled roofs and dormer windows resembling the 19th century architectural styles of Georgia, Maryland, and the Carolinas. They chose as a national flag a replica of the American Stars and Stripes, with a single star, and used the American dollar as legal tender. Just like white settlers in Africa, the Americo-Liberians constructed a colonial system subjugating the indigenous population to rigid control and concentrating wealth and privilege in their own hands. Despite their origins as descendants of slaves from the Deep South, they regarded black Liberians as an inferior race, fit only for exploitation. The nadir of Americo-Liberian rule came in 1931 when an international commission found senior government officials guilty of involvement in organized slavery. When other West African states shed colonial rule in the 1960s, the Liberian system stayed much the same. Liberian law stipulated that only property owners were entitled to the vote, so the vast majority of indigenous Africans were effectively left without one. Small numbers were assimilated into the ranks of the ruling elite, country boys adopted by coastal families, girls selected as wives or concubines, or ambitious hinterlanders climbing the ladder. During the 1970s, a few were co-opted into government. Local administration in the hinterland was largely run by indigenous officials. But essentially, Liberia remained an oligarchy where 1% of the population controlled the rest, some 2 million people. The last of the line of Americo-Liberian presidents was William Tolbert, the grandson of freed South Carolina slaves who had served as vice president for 20 years. A Baptist minister, he attempted a series of cautious reforms, abandoning the top hat and tailcoat traditions favored by his predecessor, William Tubman, selling the presidential yacht and abolishing a compulsory tithe of 10% of every government employee's salary that went to the True Whig Party. But much of Tolbert's efforts were also devoted to amassing a personal fortune and promoting the interests of family members in the traditional manner. One brother was appointed Minister of Finance, another was chosen a President of the Senate, a son-in-law served as Minister of Defense, other relatives filled posts as ministers, ambassadors, and presidential aides. Economic development in the 1960s and 1970s helped underpin the system, as well as provide new opportunities for the elite's self-enrichment. The mainstay of the economy had initially been rubber. In 1926, the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company leased 1 million acres for 99 years at 6 cents an acre to meet the American demand for car tires. Today, the Firestone plantation remains one of the largest rubber plantations in the world. But iron ore exports from massive, high-grade deposits in the Bomi Hills then overtook rubber as the major source of foreign investment and government income. By 1970, Firestone and the Liberian Iron Mining Company were providing the government with 50% of greatly increased revenues. A third source of income came from registration fees from the world's largest ghost fleet of ships. Liberia possessed only 2 ships of its own, but allowed more than 2,500 vessels plying the seas to fly Liberia's flag of convenience without the bother of inspection for a suitable fee. Liberia's economic advances, however, served only to highlight the growing disparity between the ostentatious lifestyle of the rich elite and the overwhelming majority of impoverished tribal Africans. In 1979, the same year that Tolbert spent an amount equivalent to half the national budget while acting as host to an OAU Heads of State Conference, demonstrators took to the streets in protest against a 50% increase in the price of rice, the staple food of most Liberians. The price increase had been authorized by Tolbert in the hope of encouraging local production. But since one of the chief beneficiaries was the president's cousin, Daniel Tolbert, who owned the country's largest rice importing firm, it was seen as another move to enrich the elite. On Tolbert's orders, armed police and troops opened fire on the demonstrators, killing dozens of them. In the following months, Tolbert struggled to contain a rising tide of discontent, colliding not just with the poor but with a new generation of the educated elite. He allowed the formation of an opposition party, but when opposition politicians called for a general strike, he had them arrested on charges of treason and sedition and banned the party. On the night of April 12, 1980, a group of 17 dissident soldiers led by a 28-year-old master sergeant named Samuel Doe scaled the iron gate of the president's 7-story executive mansion, overpowered the guards, and found Tolbert in his pajamas in an upstairs bedroom. They fired 3 bullets into his head, gouged out his right eye, and disemboweled him. His body was dumped in a mass grave along with 27 others who died defending the palace. Ministers and officials were rounded up, taken before a military tribunal, and sentenced to death. Amid much jubilation, watched by a crowd of thousands laughing and jeering, and filmed by camera crews, 13 high-ranking officials were tied to telephone poles on a beach in Monrovia and executed by a squad of drunken soldiers, firing volley after volley at them. A great shout arose from the mob. At his first press conference, Sergeant Doe strode into the ballroom of the executive mansion wearing a wide-brimmed Army Ranger hat, crisply pressed fatigues, and combat boots. He carried a ceremonial sword, a magnum revolver, and a walkie-talkie radio. In faltering English, he read a prepared statement, handled 2 brief questions, and then sat down. Sergeant Doe was then the youngest and lowest-ranking soldier to seize power in Africa. He was what Americo-Liberians called a country boy, a semi-literate tribesman with only basic education and limited intelligence. What inspired Doe and his group of fellow conspirators to storm the executive mansion was not a plan for revolution, but simply grievances over poor living conditions in army barracks. They possessed no political objectives, no policy ambitions, no guiding ideology, other than to set themselves up in power. A new era of rule in Liberia had begun, one which would eventually become a brutal military dictatorship.
There you go. There you go. That's a good summary. That's a pretty good summary there. I have another video, but I think it's pretty much touches on some of the same things. It's like it pretty much touches on the same thing. So I probably will not go through that. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through some of those details there. So as you heard, that here you're dealing with a group of people. These is a significant group of people. These are black former African slaves that were freemen. They were freemen. Okay. So when you want to talk about freemen, you want to talk about the descendants of slaves, all these delineation groups that our people are trying to come up with. These were your ancestors that left here, America, went over there, and they enslaved these Africans, these people who were already on the land. Makes you kind of wonder in this flurry of all of these posts that we're seeing right now about, our greatness. I'm talking about black folks now, what we invented, the great inventors and all this other stuff that we take pride of. I was thinking today, I said, we're not a proud people based on especially the video that I presented yesterday. See, a proud people, you're proud, meaning in terms of, look at, I built this house and I'm so glad. And then you're going to do everything you can to take care of this house. I'm proud of the fact that, man, my children are not out here acting a fool or whatever. I'm proud. I'm a proud papa. We're not, like I said again, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. What I submit to you is that we're not a proud people based on, like I said, the multitude of things we just hit on in that short video. Not this one, the one I posted last night. But I would say that we're a prideful people, a very prideful people. What do I mean by that? Well, Dwayne, and already I know for some of you, you're already trying to shift, but the white man in this, no. We're going to talk about us. Told you, we're going to keep the focus on us. We already know what they're about. We're going to talk about us. Because a prideful people is a people that you ain't have do nothing, or you just messy, but yet you don't want anybody to correct you in your mess. That's pride. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of pride that we got going on amongst our people. We got a lot of mess, but we don't want anybody to touch it. So what do? We just keep compacting on it. We keep overdosing ourselves on, but we came up with this. We're the foundation of this. We built this and we built that. But nobody will bring this story up. Nobody will bring this story up. Liberia. That's an afterthought. As I was putting some of the things together for this video, for this broadcast tonight, I saw this one lady. She actually did a video. She was saying debunking the myth that free Black Americans colonized Liberia. I was like, this is interesting. I said, I'm gonna see where she goes with this. And I had an idea where she was gonna go with it, and she did. She disappointed but didn't disappoint, or other way around. Because basically the way she twisted it is, as you get into it, the people who were behind this organization that was promoting free Black Americans to go to Liberia, they were actually white, and we're gonna touch on that. So she shifted the blame in a very slick way, and tried to say, well, really, it was the white people that did it. But as we get into the story, you're going to see, the white people were behind it, but they didn't have a gun to our head, made us do some of this crazy stuff that was going on over there. Okay. So for that, we're going to go and we're going to switch to this book called, it's called Our Dark History. I'm just pausing here for a minute because I want to make sure I don't lose my place here. Yeah. It's called Our Dark History, The American Settlers of Liberia. These were FBA. These were freedmen. These were whatever the Aboriginal, it don't matter. It was all of them that went to Africa. You know how when you go on social media today and they're talking about, these Africans coming over here. Well, we went over there, and we're going to read what we did over there. And again, this comes along with what happens when you're pulled away from your land and you're separated from your spirituality and all that, the crazy things it causes you to do. So anyway, let me get into it. So let me jump to my page 10 here. Hopefully I can find it. Those numbers. All right, here we go. Here they popped up. Okay. Page 10. Okay. So quite a little bit of reading. We're going to get through it. Okay. This is chapter 2, Beyond the Reach of Mixture. Okay. So this section here is going to talk about the why. Why was it that America was pushing Black people to go over there? You mean to tell me that they were whipping our behinds all this time and all of a sudden they wanted to be nice and send us back to Africa, America? Well, yeah. Well, let's just read it, okay? Let's get some little backdrop on this, okay? Okay, so beyond the reach of mixture. Although the United States of America was founded on principles of freedom and equality, from the beginning, many of its people lived in slavery. At the start of the 19th century, most Americans were aware of this contrast between the nation's ideas and its practices, but they disagreed about how or whether to resolve it. There were groups that opposed slavery and wanted it done away with. They included the free black population and the abolitionists, both white and black. Their opinions carried little weight because the whites in power paid scant attention to what African Americans thought, and the abolitionist movement was young and still very small. There were the wealthy Southern planters who did have clout and who wanted slavery to continue. Wrong or right, slave labor had allowed the South to build a strong economy based on agriculture, and Southerners feared that without free labor, their plantations would fail. The prevailing opinion, however, was that most white Americans who admitted that slavery was wrong but stopped short of demanding its immediate end. This group included Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence and third president of the United States. Nothing is more certainly written in the book of fate than that these people are to be free, Jefferson wrote in 1820. As he saw it, though, there was only one problem. If the slaves were freed, then blacks and whites might mingle in society as equals and possibly marry. Oh my goodness. Now, you know, he must be turning in his grave right now to see what's going on now. This prospect horrified Jefferson, who believed that blacks were inferior to the whites in the endowments of body and mind. Even though Jefferson had a close relationship with an enslaved woman and probably fathered some of her children, he proposed that African Americans be shipped overseas beyond the reach of mixture. Thomas Jefferson was once one of the most famous people to favor sending blacks to a distant colony, but he was not the first. In 1787, some English luminaries had actually founded, next page, 10, let's see, 11, 12, here we go, such a place, the British colony of Sierra Leone, on the west coast of Africa. The first colonists in Sierra Leone included black men who had fought for the British in the American Revolution in exchange for their freedom, as well as former slaves from Great Britain and Jamaica. Slaves and free people of African heritage had lived in England since the 1600s. In the mid-17th century, when British planters were using African slaves to build a sugar industry in the colony of Jamaica, England's black population began to rise. Wealthy families brought African children to be playmates for their own offspring and African adults to be domestic servants. Ain't that something? They were stealing children so that they can be playmates for their little white children. Ain't that something? Estimates of Britain's black population vary, but most likely it never exceeded 10,000 in the 18th century. Britain ended its participation in the slave trade in 1807, and the Emancipation Act of 1833 freed all slaves in Britain and the colonies. At the time, Thomas Jefferson pondered the future of slavery. A small number of American blacks had already been transported across the ocean by Paul Coffey, a free black man. Coffey was a rich New England trader who owned a fleet of whaling ships. For years, he had used his wealth and influence for the benefit of others. He had built a school for the children of his hometown, Westport, Massachusetts, and he had joined the abolitionists. Coffey declared, "As I am of the African race, I feel myself interested for them. And if I am favored with a talent, I think I am willing that they should be benefited thereby." Coffey visited let's see, Sierra Leone in 1811, and seemed to like everything about the place. He found its climate in December healthful and the soil rich. The settlers had built churches and schools, and they took part in life of the colony as equals to one another. Society recognized the virtues and character rather than their color. Kofi was a devout Quaker who was convinced that Christian settlers in Africa would help to end traffic in slaves. Soon after returning to the United States, he made plans to carry African-American immigrants to Sierra Leone. Let's see, the outbreak of the war in 1812, a conflict fought largely on the water, forced him to postpone his trip. But in 1815, with the war over, Kofi set sail from Boston with 38 people and reached Sierra Leone at Christmas time. 30 of the passengers could not afford to make the trip, so Kofi paid their way. He asked for nothing in return, saying, "My hope is in a coming day." Paul Kofi died in September 1817 before he could transport any more immigrants, but the idea of black colonization remained alive and well. Whites favored a colony for African Americans for a variety of reasons. Many plantation owners lived in fear of slave revolts, and they worried that free blacks might help their slaves stage uprisings. They therefore wanted the free blacks moved as far away as possible. There was also some people who opposed slavery but supported colonization. They reasoned their planters might be more willing to free their slaves if there was a place to send them. That way, planters could free slaves yet contribute to neither a slave revolt nor a racially mixed society. Finally, clergymen who shared Paul Kofi's I keep going back to there. Hold on. Religious goals argued that blacks from the United States would bring to Africa the gifts of Christianity and civilization, as they defined that term. Whites who supported colonization began to form organizations. See, now again, so this wasn't out of the goodness of white people's heart. Now, you may have some of them in there that was like, I just want them to have their own place. I want them to just live their life in freedom. But that was just a small minority. The majority was like, listen, the way we beat these, we need to get them as far away as possible. We'll pay for it. Because if we free these folks, the first thing they're going to do is go after our white women. The second thing they're going to do is tear down everything else. We don't need either. So we need to send these far away as possible. So that's what was the fueling thing behind this. It wasn't so much out of the goodness of their heart. They just realized they didn't want that smoke. If you want to smoke something, you need to smoke that over there. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, whites who supported colonization began to form organizations. In 1815, Ohio citizens formed an anti-slavery group. The Union Humane Society called for African Americans to be relocated to a place in North America beyond the western boundary of white settlement. In the same year, the Kentucky Colonization Society petitioned Congress to set aside a western territory for freed African Americans and to pay to transport them there. Virginia leaders, meanwhile, wanted the federal government to create a haven for their state's free black population. In 1816, the Virginia Assembly passed a set of resolutions calling on the government to designate land on the Pacific coast for this purpose. The United States was expanding westward in 1816 between 1795 and 1810. The number of Americans west of the Appalachian Mountains had grown from 150,000 to more than 1 million. The vast majority of these people lived east of the Mississippi River, though. The Americans of 1816, the West Coast seemed impossibly remote. Few people foresaw that the far West would be drawing large numbers of white pioneers by the mid-19th century, or that African-American colony in that region could only be temporary solution for the race problem. Let me see if I want to continue more. Let's see. Okay, so they go in, like I told y'all earlier, I'm not going to go into all the details of, the personal lives of these founders, because it is a quite interesting story. And I would encourage you to take the time and get to familiarize yourself with it. But this organization that was set up, the American Society of Colonizing, the people of color, it was the American Colonization Society. It was founded by white people. This was the main one. Then you had these other societies that we just mentioned. They were, they worked alongside this, they all worked together, but the American Colonization Society was the one that really, was like the main one. And even though it was founded by white people, they had a lot of black folks that they used, and they, that was part of it too. And they pushed them over, put them on them boats and told them to keep moving, basically. And the organization was also made up of people who were Presbyterians. You had Christians and stuff like that. You had missionaries, white missionaries as well. So it wasn't just black people that was on these boats. You also had white people coming over there too, to make sure that Christianity was the centerpiece of the spirituality of these people. Remember now, they gutted this place. These Europeans went to where this area was, where Liberia is today. They gutted that place, disturbed the spirituality of that place, and then now they twisted us up, brought us back with a new spirituality. And as we continue to read, you're gonna see just how terrible it really was. Okay. Let me go back to let me see where I want to go. Was it this book here too? Okay, so that's page 102. All right, so let me go here. We're going to jump to this book now. This is another good book to get. Another America, the story of Liberia and the former slaves who ruled it. You want to check that one out, okay? So now I'm going to go to page, I think it was 102. Hold on. I already got things highlighted, so it ain't going to be a lot of guessing. All right, here we go. Okay. All right. So let's just read. Told you we're going to be doing some reading. Okay. All right. So here we go. In this section called A Matter of Color. Let's take a now you're going to hear what was happening. Okay. So basically I'll start it off for you. When these people came over, and again, now these are freemen, these were black men and women that came over. When they first came over, to what we call today Liberia, it wasn't a smooth transition for them. In fact, by this time, they had been so disconnected from the land. When they came back, a lot of them got sick, and many of them actually died within the first few months of even landing there. Because their bodies were not, couldn't handle, like the mosquitoes were carrying malaria. Now, malaria isn't a death sentence. We got people that we know that lived on the continent. They got malaria, and it was like, oh, it's nothing. You just, there's certain things you take and it's gone. When you listen to Western media, they're like, oh God, the malaria is just all over the place and people just dying all over the place. But malaria is actually something you need to take care of. I'm not making light of it, but it's not a death sentence. It's not cancer. Okay. And even cancer, for that matter, isn't a death sentence. Not really, but again, the medical system that we're under, it is. They want you to think that. But a lot of our people, because we were disconnected, when you're away for a long period of time, and then plus the mixing that took place, in those slave camps and all of that stuff, now our bodies are coming back to our place of origin, but we couldn't handle it. You know how when after you live somewhere for a certain period of time, your body actually gets used to the water and all that stuff, but it takes some time for your body to get adjusted to it. So that's what happened when they came over there. Our bodies couldn't adjust to it because we had already been mixed up and we've been away for a long time. So we could not immediately adapt, which is why a lot of these people ended up dying. So, but there were still survivors because there was still more coming over. And so these Negroes came over. And so these Negroes, American black Negroes, came over, and automatically clicked in the mode. There was like, well, shoot, now we got opportunity to act just like our masters. So they were building homes, plantation style homes. They were doing all, it's crazy. Anyway, so let's go in and get into it. Now, this book here is going to portray them as mulattoes, and that is true, but these weren't all light-skinned people, okay? And then, but the, you know, so don't think that it was just light-skinned people, okay? These are, well, black folks too. These are American blacks that all fit into this, you know, these people that came over and they were doing this craziness. Anyway, let's go ahead and read it now. Okay. The half whites were traitors to their own African blood. There is more Negro hate in those men than they are aware of, he told the Maine State Colonization Society in 1862. More want of confidence and trust in their mother's blood than they are willing to admit. They cling to the side of their white father. A dozen years later, he was pleading with the American Colonization Society to do everything in his power to stop them from going to Liberia. You are planting here a nest of vipers. You know, I got a nest of vipers. These were black Americans that were going over here, and this is how they were being portrayed, because this is what they were given. He said, you are planting here a nest of vipers who hate the country and the race, he argued in a letter to Society Secretary William Copinger. Do save us from this indignation. Save us from these black Americans. Oh, they're not going to talk about that. Tariq Nasheed, he ain't going to talk about this. Oh, these were the coons. See, we'll find some way to, oh, these were the Edomites. We'll find some way to delineate. No, these are your ancestors. These are my ancestors. And they dropped us back in Africa. And we, like the old folks say, we cut the monkey so bad over there. We just acted like fools over there. Anyway, let's continue. Blyden, who proudly described himself as being of ebony hue, claimed that mulattoes held dangerous power on both sides of the Atlantic over a race that they secretly despise. They have set themselves up as representatives and leaders of the colored people of this country, America, he noted, but who have no faith in Negro ability to stand alone. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Don't this sound like 2024 to you? They were men who loved to sit in the highest places at public gatherings and conventions held by blacks, but refused to open their homes and shops to those darker than themselves. They had used this power to stymie the very thing Blyden had devoted his life to, integrating a thriving Liberia into a prosperous and civilizing Africa. Well, that was his first mistake. Civilizing. Why you gotta civilize Africa? They had enough of civilizing for hundreds of years. Anyway, in the United States, they scattered pestilence, whatever, teachings about the motherland, counseling poor blacks to remain in America, fearful that immigration will unsettle their hold upon their followers. So you had some Negroes that were telling poor blacks, don't come on these boats. Don't you dare come on these boats, because what we trying to do over there, you're going to mess it up. We don't need no ghetto. We don't need no ghetto folks over here. Fearful that immigration would unsettle their hold upon their followers and eventually leave none in the land low enough to do them honor. And in Liberia, mulattoes did everything in their power to thwart what Blyden felt was the country's destiny as a convergence of Africa and the West, a place where the best of each world would, foster black self-rule. They oppose all interior openings, that is outreach to the interior of Africa, and do not disguise the most impetuous contempt for the natives except in their public speeches for foreign consumption. He informed Coppinger, in Liberia as in America, Blyden believed a simple racialist society or reality, held true. A small, light-skinned elite worked against the will of the black masses. So these Negroes will go into, when they were trying to raise up money and sympathy for this project, Liberia, they would say, oh, we as black folks over here, we trying to do something, and can you help us out? And soon as they got their bag, then they said, you don't get your black hands off of this. They would tell them that. They would tell the natives that were already there in what was later called Liberia, they would tell them, nah, y'all too dark. Get your dark self out of here. On the streets of, okay, now check this out. Like many members of the Liberian elite, he criticized Blyden, who was raised with all the privilege a black man in the 19th century slave society, in his case, the Danish West Indies islands of St. Thomas, could hope for. Both his father, Romeo, a tailor, and his mother, Judith, a school teacher, were free and even rarer, literate and relatively prosperous. Now, check this part out. On the streets of Synagogue Hill, home to the island's sizable Sephardic Jewish population. That don't sound like it was us, y'all. The Sephardic were there, but that wasn't your people. See how these people out here outright lying to you because they are counting on the fact that you won't do what we're doing right now. A revolutionary act, unfortunately, reading a book. Anyway, his playmate was quite interesting. On the streets of Synagogue Hill, home to the island's sizable Sephardic Jewish population, the young Blyden played alongside future Confederate Secretary of State Judah Benjamin. Now, if you saw the video we did the other day talking about the Southern economy, we talked about the role that Judah Benjamin played in helping to establish the Southern economy, particularly in the banking sector. If you didn't see that video, I would encourage you to go see that. And we raised the issue that, these people want to say that we understand your suffering and we went through it with y'all. No, no, you were right there. Anyway, so Judah Benjamin, you can look him up. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so let me read this part here. For Blyden, the decision, now Blyden, he woke up eventually because once he got out there himself, he realized, he was like, oh snap, I've been an idiot. He realized he was being an idiot, going over there looking down on these people, and he started to change up a little bit. So there's hope did come from him eventually. So anyway, for Blyden, the decision was not a difficult one. Like most educated blacks of his day, even abolitionists who considered the white-led colonization movement a conspiracy to drive free blacks from America, Blyden was convinced that the benighted Africa was calling out for his long-lost sons to return and to lead it out of darkness. His idealism was manifest in a December 1850 article in the New York Colonization Journal, one of the first published pieces in his prodigious career as a polemist, if I'm saying that right. Okay, Liberia, he predicted, would one day, now check this out, include within its limits the dark regions of Ashanti and Dahomey, and bring these barbarous these tribes under civilized and enlightened influences. 3 weeks later, he was sailing out of Baltimore Harbor. So this is how he was portraying these people, as they were barbaric, and just dark. See what Christianity does to you? Do I read more? Let me, because I know I got to keep it up, y'all. I don't want to lose anybody here. Okay, Let's continue. Merchant wealth bred resentment among ordinary settlers who felt the elite used their advantaged positions to secure power for themselves and to deny opportunities to others. While the elite's power and wealth was most noticeable in Monrovia. Now, Monrovia was, it was like the capital, right? It also pervaded the smaller settlements of the interior and along the coast of Augustus, Washington. As Augustus Washington noted in an 1854 letter addressed to Frederick Douglass, a teacher and a daguerreotypist. I know what that is. I remember reading about that. I just can't put it together right now. Okay. Washington was neither an impoverished farmer nor one of the merchant elite, but like Blyden, a member of the Liberia's tiny middle class. As Washington explained, in nearly every town and country, there is a one-man power for that country. A man may hold all offices of government and besides be lawyer, merchant, judge, and agent for the American Colonization Society. And if he chooses, it is not difficult to turn the money and offices of these people into their own coffers. So he's talking again. This is how they saw black. This is what these black Americans were doing when they went over there. They were just taking over everything. They, with the help of these whites, they set up a society that was just like down south somewhere. It was just like down south. They were going there and they were building homes just like these plantation homes. And I'll show you too. Yeah, in fact, I'll show you now. Let's switch up here. I will show you right now. Here we go. So these are members of what's called the Americo. I hope I'm saying that right. Americo Liberian people. That's how they identify themselves. And I'm sure you know. And there's plenty of them out there still today. But this is what I'm talking about. So they say, yeah. Now those initial ones that came, they may have been mulatto. They may have been, quite a few of them may have been light skinned. But you see that over time, honey, they got about as dark as most of us, okay? But they were still carrying on this same attitude that they were better than the natives that were already there. So I'm just showing you some of the pictures here. Hope, yeah, y'all can see it, okay? And so when they got over there, then they were telling these people, build us a house. We want one just like the white people had when we were enslaved down south. Which, by the way, many of these people came from Georgia, South Carolina, and it was one other place too. It was one other place. That the other video I was going to show you, they talked about that. So they got them a home just like Mr. Charlie. And well, let's go back here. Let's get through this, okay? Because there's other things I want to get to. Yeah, RJ, you talking about most of dark skin, right? But they act as if they were better than the people that was already there. Ain't no different than these FBA people. When they look at these, when they talk down about these Africans or people coming from the Caribbean, they want to. It's nothing wrong with you saying, "Hey, listen, we have our own culture that we establish here in America, whatever." There's nothing wrong with that. Be proud of that. But when you're spitting on other your people that are in other areas like that and talking down on them like they're trash and stuff like that, and you're using the same talking points as white people are, that's a whole nother situation. That's a whole nother situation. And it goes either way too, because you got people in those areas that talk down on us too, and that's just as wrong. All right. So anyway, let's see. Let me get through this. Okay. Most settlers would have nodded knowingly at Washington's observation, but they might have added that big men, the ones who owned the ships and enacted the legislation and lived in the grand houses, were more likely not mulattoes. This tension had its roots in America, where mulattoes were better situated than blacks as a result of their status as the offspring of white fathers and occasionally mothers, who, because whites were more likely to do business with them, mulattoes typically had more money, better skills, and a higher level of education. In the South, they were far more likely than darker skinned blacks to be free. according to the 1850 census. Let me skip down here. I'll just mention this here. African American community. Let me see. And while economically successful, free black males frequently married into mulatto families, the reverse was a rare occurrence. In late antebellum Cincinnati, for example, more than 90% of mulatto men married their own kind. And so, yeah, you see this even today. There's places in South Carolina, there's places in Virginia where you have certain black folks, mulatto folks, they stay, everybody in their family looking like Steph Curry, all of them. And they do that intentionally because they don't want your dark skin. They don't want theirs. So if they can get rid of, they would. Let's see. I got to tell myself sometimes, just because I highlight a lot of stuff don't mean I got to read all of it. Okay. It's still good. Now I can use it another day. Okay. Let me see. Okay. All right, here's another nugget here. Blyden also devoted himself to learning Hebrew. Oh, well, there you go. He's a Hebrew. There you go. That's it. No, dummy. If he was a Hebrew, why he gotta learn it? Anyway, he devoted himself to learning Hebrew, a language he had first heard growing up where? On Synagogue Hill. Who was on Synagogue Hill? The Sephardic Jews. Who are the Sephardic Jews? The people that brought your black behind over there in the first place. This shuts down a lot of documentaries. This right here, it just shuts it all down. He intended to correct the bias of most interpretations of biblical passage relating to Africa and Africans, and in 1857 wrote his first scholarly essay, which he refuted the accepted notion that the curse on Noah's sons, Ham, was justification for the enslavement of the Negro race. Well, good for him. All right, let's see. If I had anything else in this book. Okay, when the female sons one of the country's leading merchants. Let's see what else. I want to make sure I got everything in here. Okay. Anything else that's in this book, because there's a lot in this book here. Anything else I may come across, what I'll do is I'll post it in our community page. Okay, I'll do that. All right. Well, how about we'll just do that, because there's a lot. There's a lot in that book. Okay. So anyway, so let's move on here. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. Is this what I want? This what am I looking at? Okay. Okay. I'll just read this here. Okay. Let's get right there. Okay. So this is Wikipedia. Okay. Liberian Americans are an ethnic. Okay. So we already know that, right? Liberian Americans, blah, blah, blah. Estimated 74,000 Liberians live in the United States as of 2014. And they go on, okay, the first Liberians in the United States were slaves imported between the 17th and 19th century. And they talk about the different groups they come from. Capelle, the Kru, the Gola, and perhaps the Geo, the Grebo, the Bassa, the Vai, and the Mandingo. And it said many of them were imported by Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia planters. And then they go on, right? Blah, blah, blah. And then they give some other history here too. Anyway, a lot of good stuff in there. I didn't, there's some things I didn't even see. All right. So let's see here. Okay. So we're going to go to the Atlantic. Okay. The Atlantic. This is a, very popular news source here, but they have a lot of good history stuff in here too. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to be reading now. I'm just going to be throwing different things at you, different nuggets. Okay. Because now I'm just trying to wrap it up here. In 1811, the American Colonization Society, a group of politicians, religious leaders, and slaveholders. Okay, let me see. 2,000 African American. Okay, I don't have to read that because we already covered that. Okay. Okay, let's read this here. On the contrary, Firestone, because now in that video, going back to that video that I showed you earlier, now we're going to fast forward a little bit. Still, these Black Americans who call themselves now Americo Liberians, now they were still in control. But guess what they were doing on top of this now? Now they were cutting deals with Firestone. They were cutting deals with Firestone. You talking about partnering, working with the devil. I mean, these people were crazy. Well, what is Firestone known for? Their tires. Well, how do you make tires? With rubber. Where you get rubber from? From the rubber trees. All right. So let's read this, okay? On the contrary, Firestone supported and perhaps aggravated a simmering Liberian social problem, the division between resettled African Americans and their descendants, known as Americo-Liberians, and Native Africans, whom the Americo-Liberians relentlessly exploited and derisively, how you say that? I'm sorry, derisively called Aborigines. So they called it. So Aborigine isn't actually like a positive term. I didn't know if people know that or not. It really isn't. So when people say we're Aboriginal to this land, it actually has some negative connotations to it. So they basically call them nigga. So you know what I'm saying. Anyway, as Meisler explained, the importance of the Firestone loan became evident in the early 1930s, citing the charges of near slavery in Liberia and reports that Liberian soldiers under command of an American black had massacred the Kru tribesmen in Liberia. Britain demanded that the League of Nations take over Liberia as a mandate. That would have meant the end of Liberian independence. As British or even an American colony, Liberia surely would have come to independence in the 1960s with power from the hands of representatives of the tribal masses, not a settler elite. It probably was only the presence of Firestone and the commitment of the U.S. government that enabled the Americo-Liberians to resist the pressures of the British and the League to keep Liberia independent. While Liberia remained in the hands of Americo-Liberians, the exploitation of the native Africans continued. Although Meisler wrote that there was little evidence to avert the friction between the Americo-Liberians and the tribal people, the tension simmered just below the surface. And then it goes on. So they enslaved these people. And I think, it's in the next page here. It talks about, they mentioned this in the video, but they talked about the deal that was cut. These Negroes went over there, acted a fool, and they all excited. They so they're now sitting in the house that looked like the white man, looked like Mr. Charlie's. Now they got one. Look at Mr. Charlie, I got a house just like yours. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Charlie's cousins in the form of Firestone come over there and say, "Hey, I see all them rubber trees there. Let's cut a deal here." You mean to tell me we get to make a deal? We get to sit at the big table with them? This is how foolish we were. Anyway, the fact is that, and then let's go on. The fact is that for 130 years, a settler elite, talking about these Black Americans, a Black settler elite, which made up of no more than 4% of Liberia's population, had monopolized all political power and controlled access to the country's resources. Its methods and its attitudes made those of the latter arriving white settler elite in Rhodesia seem mild by comparison. All right, let me move on here to this next article here. This one here, this talks more about the Firestone situation here. Okay, so let me see. Okay, good. It's not that long. Okay, let me get through this real quick, okay? To understand the ferocity of the fighting that erupted in 1990 and why Firestone and his plantation inevitably became a central in it, one needs to know something of the Liberia's unusual history. All right, and then they go on. They say the country was settled in the 1800s by the freeborn American blacks and freed American slaves, the result of a black back to Africa movement by the American Colonization Society. And then they go on, right? Even after the colony declared itself independent in 1847, naming itself Liberia, or Land of Freedom, the country duplicated many of the economic and social structures of the American South. The settlers, known as Americo-Liberians, had a complex relationship with the indigenous Africans who lived in the region. I like how they say it was complicated. No, it was terrible. And they said some of the settlers built Southern-style mansions and exploited locals' labor and land. We talked about that. Firestone arrived in Liberia in 1920. By that time, Harvey S. Firestone Sr., the farm boy from Ohio who founded Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, had become one of the top industrialists of the Gilded Age. He dreamed of finding a rubber source beyond the grasp of British Empire, which controlled much of the world market. In Liberia, he found a spot in a narrow band around the equator where the rubber trees thrived, and a nation that was in debt and desperate for business. After 2 years of negotiations, Firestone and Liberia announced, check this out, one of history's great sweetheart deals. These dumb Negroes, I have to say it. Liberia gave Firestone the right to lease. Check this out, y'all. Check this out. Listen. Liberia gave Firestone the right to lease up to 1 million acres, roughly 10% of the country's arable land. The cost, 6 cents an acre. The term, 99 years. Let that sink in. These Negroes were so excited as sitting at Mr. Charlie's desk. They thought they was cutting some deals. And y'all dummies signed a deal, 6 cents an acre for 10% of your country for 99 years. You big dummy. I will say it myself. I'm going to say what Fred Sanford would say all the time. You big dummy. And this is why I tell people all the time, if the American government decides, which I don't think they ever will, hand out reparations checks, I will be on Mars. I will live on Mars. I will be on Mars. I'll find a way to get up there, because you see what happens when people are disconnected and discombobulated, and you give them a lot of access to a lot of things, you got nothing but a whole lot of messes about to erupt. That's why me, my black behind, and my family, we gonna be on the other side of Mars, and I'll be looking at it on my little phone or whatever it is I'll have up there. But I ain't gonna be nowhere around. Will that be more for me? Okay, well, you have it. You take it. Take it. The deal survived an early controversy in 1930 when investigations from the League of Nations found officials in the Liberian government, these are black Americans, had engaged in forcing indigenous villagers to work on private farms, including Firestone plantations. So these Negroes not only enslaved the Africans that were there, the Liberians that were already there, they not only enslaved them, but they were also leasing out these people to Firestone, the white people, the farm boy from Ohio. This is what we were doing over there. And then they're going, look at him, skinning and grinning. This is William Tubman. He's one of them. And it's still going on to this day, family. That's why I said I ain't going. What's the point of even reading more? It's no point of even reading. This is still going on to this day. Firestone, they still hanging over there making that money. They got a good grip. Still to this day. Anyway, almost finished here. Almost finished. Like I said, I'm getting better because I be hiding. I be highlighting everything, man. It'd be so much, man. I be reading some of this stuff. I'm like, but I don't have to read everything. That's why I got to tell myself. Okay, so this thing here is from an article. This is back in 2001. It's called Slaves of Freedom. This was in the Guardian. Yeah, this is from the Guardian. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to jump to this part here. We're just about finished for real. As early as the middle of the 19th century, long before apartheid, listen. As early as the middle of the 19th century, long before apartheid was instituted in Southern Africa by the Afrikaners, it had been invented and made flesh by the rulers of Liberia, descendants of black slaves. In the small, bigoted world of Monrovia, an ordinance was instituted forbidding close contacts with the local population, particularly intermarriage. To this end, the government in Monrovia allocated to each tribe, there was 16 of them, a territory where they were allowed to live, not unlike typical homelands created for Africans decades later by the white races from Pretoria. All who spoke out against this were severely punished. The chiefs of unsubmissive tribes were eliminated on the spot. The rebellious population murdered or imprisoned, its villages destroyed, its crops set afire. This was black Americans that was doing this. Oh, nobody will want to talk about that. Put that on a shirt. Put that on a shirt. Make a documentary about that one. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. These expeditions and local wars had a single overriding goal: to capture slaves. Let me say that again. These expeditions and local wars had a single overriding goal: to capture slaves. The Americo-Liberians needed laborers, and indeed they started using slaves on their farms and in their businesses as early as the second half of the 19th century. They also sold them to other countries. In the late 1920s, the world press disclosed the existence of this trade plied officially by the Liberian government. The League of Nations intervened. The then President Charles King was forced to resign, but the practice continued by stealth. And the article continues. It goes on to, because you had two parties. You had what was called the True Whig Party. And then you had the Republicans. The Republican, that was mainly the the True Whig Party. I'll just read it here. In 1869, the True Whig Party was formed in Monrovia. It enjoyed a monopoly of power for the next 111 years until 1980. You could achieve something only if you were a member of the party. These were the black American Negroes, okay? Its opponents were either in prison or abroad. And then they go on. Okay. So then it goes on. I mean, they still got stuff going on to this day. All right. I told you there's a lot I could read, but I got to keep it moving here. Let me see here. America was on a one-time relationship. Okay. I'll just read this part here. From their experience, in the American South, the Americo-Liberians knew only one type of relationship: master-slave. The first move upon arrival in this new land, therefore, was to recreate precisely that social structure. Only now the slaves of yesterday, were the masters, and it was the indigenous communities who set out to conquer. They set out to conquer and rule. Okay, so the rest, that's the same article. I think that's it. I'm trying to see what else. Was there something else here that I want to talk about? So anyway, so to recap again, for those that are uncomfortable in hearing some of this stuff, again, these organizations, even though white people were initially, they were financing this whole experiment called Liberia. And then you had the religious groups in there. You had the church in there as well that was making sure that the spirituality, it never reverted back to what the spirituality was originally in that land. That's why you had Christian missionaries present. That's why they came in with all of this, Christianity and stuff in there. I'm talking about the black Americans. They came in there. And they didn't realize what was happening was this was a trick, basically, to make sure, okay, now we don't whipped you, we don't rape this thing in you. Now, when you go back to Africa, now let's sit back and see what you learned. And they did. They came over there and acted exactly what they all that time. They learned how to be just as evil as these white people that took them out of Africa in the first place. And so they came in, and that's why I listen to some people who tell this story about Liberia. They try to make it seem like, well, no, black Americans didn't try to colonize. You were part of the American colonization society. It was y'all were colonizing. That's what y'all were doing. But you were doing it with the help and aid of white people. Now, over time, what happens is as time goes on, they started backing off. America starts saying, enough. Then you know what? They got it. They got it down pat. We ain't got to keep sending money over there. And then it became just a series of self-destruction with the government. So fast forward to this day now, I did have another article. I'll just mention it briefly here. This is in the UN Refugee Agency. I'll just read it. They said, they talk about the massive amount of Liberian refugees that are just scattered all over the place because it's gotten so bad. The government. I'm not saying you can't go to Liberia. It's just a dungeon of disaster. Nobody's saying. I'm sure you can go over there, find some places, and you can have a good time. And there's some beautiful areas and all that there. So if you down, you want to go. But what I'm saying, the government itself is extremely corrupt. It's just like the government here in the United States. Ain't no different. It's just far worse. Okay. Corruption is corruption. Okay. So let's not paint the picture that the United States got it all together and the United States doesn't have a corrupt government. It does. It's very corrupt. They just know how to hide it. When you get around black folks, we don't know how. We just gonna let it all out. Okay. And so you have these people, these natives to this land of Liberia. That experiment was such a bad thing. Even as recent as now in 2024, you got Liberians that are still running away, fleeing. You know how people like Tariq Nasheed talking about, y'all know how to do is just flee. Y'all just fleeing all over the place. Well, look at the contribution that we put into getting these people to flee. So anyway, we played a major part in that. And this is a part of our history that we don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about because it doesn't fit in any narrative. It doesn't fit in any of our narratives. We just want to sit back and just talk about how great of people we are. We're the chosen ones and all that stuff. If you're chosen, so I'm ending up where I started this conversation to begin with. Chosen to do what exactly? When you look at this situation here, what exactly are you chosen to do? To do more of that? If we don't face this kind of stuff here, if we don't face this kind of history and the type of demand that we're putting on this system to pay us for what they treated, how they treated us, if we're not leading by example, you are a fool and you're wasting your own time. You will never see a dime of any reparations in your lifetime. You can count on that. You can count on that. If you don't go back and correct this kind of stuff, or at least acknowledge, you know what? That's part of our history too. And I'm not going to hide it behind that we're just a cursed people and we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We just curse people. When people say that, that's why I really stay hard on that. Stop saying that you're a cursed people, because when you say that, when you say you're cursed people, what it does is it absolves you from any responsibility. It just means that what you're basically saying is we don't have any control over any of this stuff. That's what you're saying. No, you're not a cursed people. We just have people amongst our people that make some very dumb decisions. And we have to be willing enough to call these people out for what they are, who they are. And you got to learn to call them out and separate yourself from them instead of trying to include everybody. These people were wicked for what they did to those people. And so anyway, with that being said, like I said, we covered quite a bit of territory in our discussion tonight. And I really appreciate your time and your patience. We're going to continue this conversation. Okay, we're going to be looking at a great number of things, you know, in detail, and just the root of this hating ourselves. I hope that way we started in the first half of this conversation, you at least have a foundation understanding as to why we do the things we do. It's not excusing it. It's just simply explaining, showing you why things are, this series of failure, this series of self-sabotage, this series of self-hate, what happens when you're separated from your place of origin, and what that really means, you know, when you're separated from your place of origin, and what that entails, and what it causes, and what causes things to happen. And so I'll finish off with this, because I know for some people, I've seen this question come up often. People will ask, well, Dwayne, okay, so you don't believe the biblical narrative that we're chosen, then what do you believe? Do you believe this, you know, what do you believe as far as black people are concerned? You believe there's something special about us? I truly believe that. I believe the amount of energy that this system has put into burying, into destroying who we are. I truly believe there's something very special. There is something very unique about us. And I think whatever that is, it's something that cannot be contained in any book. If who we are can be contained in a book, then we're just like everybody else. And I don't believe that. I believe that there's something more, but it's going to take time. It's going to take some honesty. We're going to have to sort through the lies. We're going to have to call these things out for what they are. If it's a lie, we got to call it out for what it is. We got to stop trying to stay in this matrix and trying to fit everything in. But, you know, like I talk to some of these people, they can't explain anything unless they throw in scriptures in it. Everything got to be a scripture attached to it. It's like, well, you know, in the hidden book of Enoch, it says this, and you know, and all that. I'm like, whoa, bro, give me some facts. Give me some real things, some tangible history that I can put my hands on. Stop quoting their other stuff. What is give me, let's look at some real history here. And then they just drop off. They can't do it. So anyway, I really, really hope you got something out of it. Now, I hope this is giving you a lot to think about. You know, we're going to look at all of these different things, these stupid things our people do, this hatred, and where does it actually come from? But like I said, again, it ain't going to just stop there. What we're doing. That's why we call this Saba Journeys, because we're on a journey. We're journeying in this truth, and we're finding, and we're uncovering, we're unraveling. And it's a journey that lasts until you cross over into the other place, or, you know what I mean? So it continues, but we're moving forward. And I'm so glad to have some of y'all with us. Because I don't know who's with us, who ain't, but it don't matter. But we're moving forward, and we're going to continue to ask questions. We're going to continue to ask hard questions, and we're going to continue on digging in, so get to this truth. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. So it's something to be very. So I hope you just take that, and we're just going to end it there. So anyway, that's it, family. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You may want to watch this again or whatever. And I appreciate your time. You guys take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, whenever you're watching this. Take care.